about what I think it's an important subject, and we kind of have even a lot of fear around to even think about that, I think. And I think that it's important for us to bring awareness to those subjects from somebody that has gone through it. And because I think there's so much power in talking to people who have gone through something and conquer it, rather than just wait for ourselves to get to that and go like, I'm not prepared. I don't know what I'm doing here, and then going through all the motions ourselves. Hi, Jennifer, how are you?
This is really exciting. This is fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. And I love how you described yourself on your website. Like we were talking a little bit off camera, and in that moment that you realize it was kind of a life-changing moment. Like, why don't you start telling us a little bit more about your story?
Oh, it's really interesting. This is the hardest question to answer because I feel like I have multiple origin stories. There are things that we all do, right? But there are things that happen along my life that have just kind of shifted how I'm traveling and what I'm doing. And I think the first thing that happened was just having kids and not being prepared for this major life change. And I'm still like not okay with how this whole thing is presented to women, or not presented rather. There's all this buildup to having kids and the expectations placed on women, and then how to be pregnant, how to give birth, and then nothing. You're like dropped off a cliff and you have to figure everything out. And it was really hard for me because we had moved. So we were in a new city. We were like just starting over from scratch. We had no family around. So that was a huge, it's a big wake up call for me. Like if there's something, this is not okay. And so about 6 years into motherhood, I was like, all right, I have to do something. And because my brain was going soft, like when you are in that full-time phase of motherhood, you are all in. Even if you're working outside the home, if you're working in the home, you're still, as a mom, you are all in because they need you. And I had to figure out, how am I going to do that and try to like reclaim some of myself again. And so I started a business, and then that business evolved into, and I realized actually when I had the business, I was like, wow, having something outside of motherhood this is what I need. And I could see all these other women wanting that too. So I started mentoring women on how to have a home-based business that was very flexible with their schedule, with their kids. And that was fantastic for about 10 years, maybe 15. And then my best friend died about 4 months after her 50th birthday. And it's been 4 years and it's still like a deal. It's hard because you're just like, you don't realize how fragile life is. You don't realize it. Like you do.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. And mine was like, I had that huge wake up call from her. And I also lost my dad when he was 56.
Wow.
So what struck me, it struck me with my dad, but mostly with my girlfriend, Andrea. She did not get to live her life. And when I say that, I don't mean live her life like she didn't get to be 80, because that's never guaranteed. I mean, the life that she thought she would have never happened. It never materialized. And I knew her dreams. I knew her aspirations since she was 20. Like I knew what she wanted to do. Like she should have been in LA, maybe had a couple of kids. I don't know, that could change, but she should have been an actress. Like that's what she wanted so desperately.
It gives me goosebumps. Oh my God. It brings tears to my eyes. Like that's just
but knowing like we all have these things. And then I took that story and that experience and I was like, okay, what I'm doing is not enough. Because I was a family photographer and a business mentor for moms. It wasn't enough because I knew what I had really wanted in my life. And it just was this, it was not just a wake up call. It was a slap in the face. It's like,
Yeah.
you got to get moving. You have to take control of your life.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing. So for 4 years now, I have been working through a life plan that I created that gives me aspirations. It gives me goals. Keeps me moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I started doing that, I started feeling lighter. I started feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, okay, then I get closer to empty nest. So I've got 1 foot in empty nest, and I've got 1 foot out. Got 1 kid at home and 1 kid at college. That's another huge, like, oh girl, this is happening, because that's something that people don't talk about.
No.
They do not talk about the reality of empty nest, the reality of you've been a mom for 18 plus years. Nope.
Yeah.
And the thing is that they say, you'll be fine. Your kids are adults. They're going to be okay. That's true. We have feelings. We are still people. And we have this job for 18 plus years. And now that job is suddenly on call. We've gone from full-time mom to part-time mom to on-call mom. And it's very emotional. It's very weird. So that's another origin story. So then I started incorporating all this empty nest stuff into my work, because I feel like it's such a huge part of midlife moms. It's huge. And then another layer is menopause. And you've got all these things converging, and it's just, that's how we got here. It's not an easy answer. It's just life. It's just like constant evolution and constant change, and getting really good at handling hard things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the secret of life, right? Getting really good at to handling hard things. I think we spend some time thinking that, when I get there I'll be happy, or when I do this I'll be happy, and then when this problem goes away I'll be happy. And it really touched me how you described your best friend's journey, because I feel that you get into this like hamster wheel, like when you are in your 20s, I'm going to earn money, I'm going to have a career, perhaps you have a few kids, and, you're just kind of, trying to juggle it all. But you haven't really got the time to stop and think, what do I really want? And sometimes, like your friend did, like she wanted to be an actress, but everybody in the world is saying to you, like, nah, don't do that, because that's not going to give you any money, and you're not going to be. So you just leave it. And then you drop it, and you keep going this hamster wheel, thinking like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to keep doing. And and then you're winging this whole being a mom thing, the perfect Instagram pictures, like this baby's never going to cry, for the first 6 years.
And then just imagine all these women that are absolutely rocked by a child that might not be neurotypical, or maybe they have special needs, or there's something else going on, or something in their life change. It's just like, are you familiar with Kara Lawson? Probably not. Kara Lawson is a coach for women's basketball college here in the States, and North Carolina, I believe. There was this viral video that went around in 2022, and it was like, yes, this is where it's at. And she was talking to her team, and she was like, life doesn't get easier. It gets harder. And we have to get better at handling difficult situations. We get better at doing the hard things.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
Life does not get easier.
Yeah.
And if we coast, if we just toss something out there like, well, I'd like to do this, but we aren't really engaged in it, and we aren't actively pursuing it, and we're not comfortable with failure if we don't reach it.
Yeah.
Then what are we doing?
Yeah.
We're just existing and waiting for somebody to come and help us or hand it to us. And no.
Yeah. Or make us happy, right? Like, I think there is a lot of When you talk about I took control of my life, that didn't mean that you kind of, and I would love you to talk a little bit about that. Like for me, is what you've just described there. I took control after a cancer diagnosis. Was like, okay, well, first I need to take control of my health because it's in shambles. Then I need to take control of my mental and emotional health because that was a big part of the cancer. Then I have to take control of my professional health, my professional life. And that was in layers because I was so sick and I had to go through all of that. But that doesn't mean that every single day, it's all like flowers and perfect and, like Instagram pictures, right? Like, I think that's what people don't realize. There were so many things that, was ups and downs and failing and trying again. And what about this? What about that? And but the big thing, I think what you said about, when your best friend died, like I would say that over and over again. If I had died when I got diagnosed with cancer, which was when I was 38, I would have felt, in actual fact, I felt like that. What am I doing? This is not the life that I want to live.
Yeah. Yep.
If I want to live a life, I might have another year, I might have two. I don't know. I need to change because this is not the life that I want to live. So I got a second chance, right? I got a second chance there, which, unfortunately, your best friend didn't. And I think that when you like acknowledge that and you take action, because there's so much information out there and people like keep scrolling and keep looking at more information, but there is not a lot of action.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, that's actually where I started. That's where I started everything, was just taking action. I realized that, and I mentioned that I kind of see motherhood in 3 phases. You get full-time parent, and that's when it's you're parenting kids that are 10 and under roughly. And then when they hit around middle school, all the way through high school, you're in part-time mom phase. And a lot of women have a hard time with this when their kids start pulling away, but it's just natural. They start pulling away a little bit, and that's our time. When they're younger and you're in that full-time mom phase, the only thing that you really can do is control how you spend your time and your habits. Like, and how does that fit into your parenting world? I don't know if that makes sense, but I see it just as like, if there's anything you can do that you can take control of when you have young kids, because it's chaotic.
Yeah.
Is your habits and how you spend your time, your behaviors. And it's just as little as you can do. It doesn't matter. 10 minutes a day, it doesn't matter. And I'm not talking about self-care and getting pedicures. I mean, like legitimate things that are going to make you feel really good on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
So then you've got, and then you can start doing the planning and maybe some action when you're in that part-time mom phase. But then when you are in that on-call mom phase, when your kids are often on their own, they're out of the house, they're in college, they've moved across the country, whatever, that's when you get to start planning and acting. And it really breaks my heart when I see people waiting to start any of this. Like, I started over 10 years ago, like unofficially planning my life. I knew the kids are going to be gone. How do I want that last phase of my life, that last chapter to look? I want to be 80 years old and look back on my life and just be like, yeah, I'm really happy with it. Not that I traveled and I did these major, huge things, but I feel good about who I am and how I affected people.
Yeah.
That is literally all you need. You do not need a huge bank account. You do not need to have all the time in the world. You need to have a plan. You need to know what you want.
Yeah.
And then figure out how you're going to get it. And just, I have this thing on my website and randomly places, and I've been saying this to people for years and years and years. Don't wait 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you can as early as you can. And it doesn't matter. I mean, there's so much information out there on how to get aspiration. There's goals, books about habits, there's books about behaviors, and anybody can reach out to me and say, hey, where would you start?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And because Well, you're talking about like 18 years is a long time, like for you to wait, right? I remember a little bit before my cancer diagnosis, I wasn't sick or anything like that. We were living in New Zealand. That's where we had our kids again with Downey family, and it was very chaotic. And my daughter had asthma, and I became this like crazy mother, like protecting this child because, if she went outside, she'd cough. And I just, my husband will tell to this date, I tried to erase all of those years from my memory because you were just a nightmare, right?
Yeah, if you're on some kind of medical condition or neurological, something on motherhood in itself is hard, even if you have completely healthy children.
Yeah.
But wow, okay, so I'm sorry.
And then
how hard that is.
I went back to work, and it was one of the hardest things leaving them, because my mom spent all her life with us, and I kind of felt like, I'm from Brazil, like you should be with your kids. Like I felt thought like, what should I do? But then I also left Brazil so I could be an independent woman, and for me it was like a big thing that I was always going to be independent financially. But when I went back to work, I had traveled, I had lived in 6 different countries, I was married, I was happily married, I had 2 kids, and I was like, is this it?
Yeah.
I couldn't get out of the, I remember, and when I look back now, that was my midlife crisis, and I was probably like 35 years old. I was deeply unhappy, but I didn't know that. I wasn't going to put my hand up as a high achiever, say like, oh, I'm unhappy. I wasn't going to do that because that's a failure, right? I needed to put this face like, no, everything is good, everything is great, like look at my kids and look at, like, and all of that. And, back then I was never on social media, so I didn't even get exposed to all of this perfect. We all know that it's not perfect lives, right?
Right.
So I was very much driven by the culture that I grew up in. You have to just be strong and just keep pushing through, even when you're not happy.
Yeah. See, that is, it's so true, and it blows my mind. But that's how I think so many of us, we don't want to be the ones to say that we're not okay, because if we say we're not okay, then we're broken. There's something wrong with us. We can't handle it. We're not doing it well enough. And it's like, you know what? You're right. I can't handle it. I'm not doing it well enough. Yeah. And this does suck. And I hurt, and I'm angry, and I'm sad, and I'm all these things all the time. And that also could be hormones, because your hormones are declining at 35.
Yeah.
And we are just now talking about that. Like, I don't know if you've been exposed to that a lot in the past. In the past year, it's become more of a subject, a topic. And if I had known about that when I was, 40, around 43, when I was going through perimenopause, I mean, I just didn't feel like myself, and I just didn't feel like happy. And I just was like, this is it. This is life.
Yeah.
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 And I was telling my husband the other day, we were talking about expectations for adulthood. And, because we've got teenagers, and we hear quite often, I can't wait till I'm an adult. I can make my own decisions. And I'm like, oh, dude, you have no idea how boring adulthood is. It is so repetitive and monotonous. And it's just like paying bills and like, it's like, that's actually part of why I love to have a plan.
Yeah.
Because like having a midlife plan, because when things do get monotonous, you've got something to turn to be like, okay, how am I going to make my life a little bit more interesting? And a little bit more interesting can be literally as simple as turning left when you normally turn right.
I know.
Going to a different coffee shop in maybe a neighboring town. Like just trying these tiny little tweaks to make things not so monotonous. And because motherhood specifically can be really monotonous. It's just
it is quite interesting you say that. I was thinking about like the movie Eat, Pray, and Love, which is my favorite movie of all times. And I was pretty wild when I was young, and I left Brazil when I was 21, which was unheard of in my family. I was the only one doing that. And everybody was like, what are you doing? Like as a woman, I was expected just to get married and have kids. After uni, I had just finished uni, and I was like, nah, I'm not doing any of that because that doesn't suit me right now. I just want to go and do my own thing. And I love when she's in Bali, and she's like dancing and having fun and just like, doing whatever she wants. It just gives me that sense of like freedom, like that feeling of,
Yeah.
and like I said, when you have children, that is taken away from you completely, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's
Well,
face
that's
it.
the thing that's so amazing about empty nest. Like, and I actually try to call it open nest as much as possible, because empty nest is such a negative term.
Yeah.
And there was actually somebody on TikTok told me that. She said, I like to call it open nest because empty nest feels so heavy. And I was like, oh my gosh. And her name's Jen. I don't remember her. I don't know her last name because
Yeah.
it's some handle, but it was so brilliant. And I know it's a thing. They talk about it. It's out there. I Googled it. And they've been talking, some people talk about open nest since only since 2008. Like, that's the earliest reference I can find. But it's still, when you hit that phase, your kids are still coming back. Like, it's an open nest, right?
Yeah.
But it's the first time in your life since maybe your 20s
Wow.
that you have that freedom to do things and make choices. And you'll probably make better choices, and you have more money to do more things. And so it's just midlife can be an amazing freaking time for us. It can be whatever we really want it to be. And like I said, even if money is an issue or time is an issue, I know that I have a couple of past clients have worked 2 jobs. And so they really struggled. Like, I don't have time. I'm working these jobs to put my kid through school. How am I going to travel and do all these things? It's like, well, you know what? What if you just traveled to a town on the weekend that's nearby?
Yeah.
And you just explored these other places where we are, wherever you are around you in your country, in your state, where there's stuff going on that you haven't experienced. And so you dream big and you dial back to however it fits your needs. And this is our time. And there's so much to look forward to. And it's also very emotional too. It's very emotional. And a lot of that could be menopause, but I think that a lot of it's emotional because of that shift from being a full-time mom, 18 plus years. Some people have multiple kids and they have been immersed in parenthood for 25 years, half their life. They've been doing this job. And then all of a sudden it's just like they get a phone call saying, you know what, we're downsizing. You're going to be on call from now on. We'll let you know your contract work. So I don't know. It's exciting and sad and all the feelings, but we just push through, right?
Yeah.
We push through. It's the only way to do it.
And I think what you said it's powerful, because you said, we can have the best time ever. We don't have to accept mediocre. We don't have to accept. And I've seen, you on your website talking about, like I was drinking, I was not healthy, I was tired, whatever. Now, your TikTok videos is all about you're super healthy, you're out there, you exercise, you do. Talk us through a little bit about some of your clients that, you arrived there, you haven't looked after yourself for 20 years. And not having to only find yourself again, feeling your time, but also you haven't looked after yourself, your health. Talk us a little bit through that.
So it's really interesting because it feels like I have 2 types of clients. I've got clients that are scared and they're doing this out of fear. And then I have clients that are fired up. Let's go. I got big plans. Those people are short-term clients. They come in, they go out. Like, let's get this going. And then they go out. And then, maybe we check in or they join a group or something of mine. But the women who are afraid are the hardest, because it's just hard. That's all. They're so afraid that when you are that worried about the empty nest years, and you're immersed in motherhood, maybe you're super close with your child, or even now I have not had a client but I have had conversations and consultations with people who have special needs children. That's a whole nother thing, a whole nother level of fear, because they may not ever have an open nest, and that's figuring out how to implement as much of the full-time mom freedom that you can get. And I did have somebody say, this is completely side note. Say in a comment, TikTok is much more of a community, weirdly, for me than Instagram. People are really eager for information and they want to learn. And this woman said, I have special needs. So, and it was on a video about boredom. And one of the things that a lot of women who have an empty nest feel is bored. The quiet house, they don't know what to do. They wind up filling all their time scrolling. And this woman said, I have a special needs child. I won't ever experience an empty nest. I wonder if there's any way any of these bored moms could help us out with our and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, tell me more. How do you imagine that working? Because talk about a way to give back. And I don't know what that looks like, but there's just so many different types of women out there, and how can we help each other? But going back to your question about like clients, so if somebody is scared, and I generally just have them start really small. Let's just start working on what would your days? It's really this common, like almost like a life coachy thing, but imagine your day, your perfect day, your ideal day. What does that look like? But instead, it's like, imagine doing the things that you really want to do. Like, what are the things that interest you? So here's something that, anybody watching can do right now. If you want to figure out or start thinking about other passions and other purposes, because we can have more than one purpose. So a lot of the women who are afraid also find their purpose in motherhood. So if we start with finding other passions and other purpose, it's remarkably helpful, even if you're not moving on it, just to know, okay, I can do this. So what you do is you start with, and this is something that I have done myself, and by trial and error, and when it winds up working. But then I also read a lot. I read a lot about, just our brains, behaviors, and habits. And I just love that stuff so much. So Steven Kotler wrote a book called The Art of Impossible. And it's all about, have you read that one at all?
No, I haven't actually, no.
Okay. I love it. It's one of my favorite books. I've read it 4 times. I've taken so many notes on it. I listen to it sometimes in the morning when I'm getting ready. It's about our brains. He has a lot of neuroscience in there. And it's about how to kind of hack into flow. So that flow state that we get in, where we're just moving and grooving and we just love what's happening. So I can do that with certain things. I can do that with workouts. I can do that with work. But he's saying, no, you can do this with anything. One of the things he talks about is passion and purpose. So what you do is you make a list of 25 things that you're really kind of interested in. If you got a couple extra hours and you could do a deep dive and read more and discover more about it, what would that be? Maybe it's knitting. I don't know. It could be rock climbing, camping, anything. You make this list, and things that maybe you were interested in before you had kids. Maybe it was something that you did before you had kids. So it doesn't have to be something new. It could just be something that you're curious about, interested in, wish you had time to do. Make that big list. Then you start doing these things. Just check it out. Just a little bit at a time. Just try it for a bit, see how it goes. And anything that kind of strikes your fancy, you remember that. You make another list of your values and your beliefs. Well, what do you stand for? What would you change in the world if you could? Like, wave a wand and this would happen. So the trick is, this is finding passion. The list of things you're interested in is finding your passions. You take the list of values and beliefs and you cross-reference it. And what on your values and beliefs corresponds with things on your passions list.
Mm-hmm.
So an example might be you're passionate about dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Like you love dogs. So I might be speaking from experience.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I love dogs.
You love dogs. You just love dogs. Maybe you dog walk on the side. You help. You just love dogs. But then maybe one of your core beliefs is we need to treat animals better.
Yeah.
Your core belief is there should be no kill. There should be no kill shelters. I don't know what you guys have there, but we have shelters that put dogs down and animals down all the time. Then you've got some shelters that are no kill.
Yeah.
So then maybe fundraising happens to be a skill of yours. So you try to find these crossovers. So now all of a sudden you have this idea like, okay, maybe I can start working at shelters with the dogs, and maybe I can fundraise. And you try to find another purpose. And this is not complex. It's just a matter of trying things out and getting really clear about what matters to you. And that's kind of what we were talking about a little bit about. You can't just throw an idea out there and expect something to happen.
No.
This is getting clear about what matters to you and then trying it.
Yeah. I think, and I think what you said there is, it's like, it's not complex, right? Like I think there is a tendency in this world that we need to, there is a secret out there that I still haven't found out, right? There is, there is a secret that is going to tell me exactly how to change my habits, my beliefs, and with 1 minute, I'm going to do it. And then everything's going to go away. And, me and like we're kind of very similar. I read a lot as well. And I've studied a bachelor of holistic health science, a lot of neuroscience, and isn't a secret. The secret is that it is taking action, taking imperfect action, failing, learning, moving on, getting back up again and doing it again. And I feel that, I've had some clients as well that, they get to that age of thinking, okay, well, and sometimes they haven't had kids, or if they had kids on their own, because there isn't that focus anymore. I also see that, if the relationship is not great, right? Because in that relationship, because of the kids or whatever, and they are left, like feeling really lost and lonely, even though they are in a relationship.
See, it's all so layered.
Yeah.
There's so many things that happen. Yeah. Divorce is a huge deal in empty nest. Divorce is huge, and it's very hard to track because statistics are, I want to say like 1 in 5, something like that. But they say it might be more because this is people who they're saying roughly around the age of 50, like between 50 and 60, and that have kids. And if they get divorced, they're assuming it's from empty nest. But what about the people who still hang out for 15 years after the kids are gone, and they're 65, they're 70, and they're like, no, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
So, and in divorce in, older couples is actually quite common too, surprisingly. But it's hard to track how much of it is associated with empty nest. And that is, there's pretty clear evidence that it's because of the lack of connection with the relationship, and that somehow, without maybe even knowing it and expressing it, they stayed together for the kids. Parenting was the thing that held them together. They had that in common. So that's another thing that we can be working on is communication, just communication. Read books. There's a book called The Lost Art of Listening. It's fantastic. Another book called You're Not Listening.
Yeah.
Listen. Just listen and communicate and go to therapy. Take care of yourself.
I agree with that. Like you talk about therapy, like what are your thoughts around, couples therapy? Like in my own experience, I've been married for 14 years, something like that, and 6 years together. Like we've been together for 20 years. And my husband and I have a really, really happy and loving relationship, and I'm very lucky. But it hasn't always been as conscious as it is now, because when we had the kids young, we kind of lost a bit in just looking after them, right? And although we connected, like, physically, that didn't mean that we were connected mentally. You know what I mean? Like at a deeper level. And I think that after the cancer, I was working on myself, and I was really lucky that my husband was like, well, I need to work on myself as well. And we work on ourselves separately. Like, we went to therapy.
That's huge.
Yeah, because I mean, the stuff that I've gone through is not, is not the stuff that he's gone through. And I really feel that, couples therapy, unless you have done the work on yourself, I agree. It works, because at the core, you have to change how you perceive things, right?
Right. You have to understand what you're really feeling too. And I mean, I'm in therapy for myself. My husband does his own therapy too. And it's off and on. It's like when, I've been doing it pretty straight through for a year and a half now. And I've just learned so much about myself and how I'm really feeling about things. And it's been really helpful. And it's also interesting because, I don't know, I love it because the person I found will talk to me about like whatever. I'll be like, look, I'm having trouble parenting my kid right now. And so she's got some great stuff around that. So I just feel like it's just a good sounding board. But it doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't know. Going back to, I totally agree. We've tried couples therapy for like a hot minute, and I felt the whole time, it's like, look, I'm doing all this work on myself, and you're not. And now we're here. It just doesn't. I hate to say this, but it doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
And so we stopped. And then, independently, but what I think is interesting is that you said that you were working on yourself, and then he was like, hey, wait a minute, I want to work on myself. That is so true. Like, don't worry about the other person. They might follow.
Yeah.
They might realize, oh, wow, you're.
Yeah. I mean, my clients, like 9 times out of 10, the husbands start getting a bit curious. Oh, you exercise. Oh, you're changing this. Oh, you're changing that. And before they know, and their husbands are doing this stuff as well. But of course, there are cases where I had a particular client who, been together. They didn't have any kids. She was in kind of mid-30s. And at the end of a program together, she had made so much progress. She was, doing so well. And I said to her, look, there is one thing that it's always going to pull you down, and it's your relationship. Now, I'm not here to tell you to stay or go, because of course that's only a decision that you can make. But, as we have talked about and as you have highlighted, you have different values, you have different beliefs, and the relationship is not very, at the level that you want it to be. And, and for you, would be better if it changed, but it doesn't sound like the other person feels the same. I think just by having that self-awareness. So so the day that you start, if you start feeling tired physically, is because mentally your relationship, emotionally, it has drained your energy, right? Like, I don't think that, you just have to just walk out and go in every relationship, but it is a choice.
Think about it.
Exactly. It's a choice.
You need to think about stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Along that same lines, talking about divorce and just the relationship. There's a book that I wish I had known about before I got married, and it is the Fair Play Method by 𝗖𝗛𝗄𝗏𝗏, I believe. Oh, it's gold. It's so good. She talks about the emotional and the mental load of women, of moms in the relationship. It's actually just women, but then you add on the layer of kids, and it's shifted even heavily more towards her. So that if we are constantly on, like, it blew my mind how much we are thinking and predicting and constantly about everything. And so even if your partner comes in, the dad comes in, and they're taking care of some stuff. And they're like, well, just make me a list. I'm here. I will help with making a list. But I got to make that list now.
Yeah.
I got to make that list. And then I got to make sure you're getting the list or doing the list. It's like, so she talks about having ownership top down. And that is like, okay, you're speaking to me, because I fully believe in ownership in everything that we do. In parenting, we have ownership. If our kid is not doing something the way we want them to do it, that's on us. We got to figure out what's going on. How can we improve what we're doing? So anyhow, it's ownership top down. So you distribute the workload.
Yeah. And give it. Here we go. It's yours. Like, no, I'm going to make a list.
It's so well done. The book is so well done because she is like, nobody's at fault.
Yeah.
Nobody's at fault. This is just the way it is. And we're going to work with this. And this is going to make a better relationship. And I can promise you, if anybody feels like they have this inequality at home, get this book. You work on it. Even if your spouse has zero interest in it, get the book. And just like we talked about already, like, you do the work.
Yeah.
And you start communicating what you need. Yeah. Oh, it changes everything. Because imagine not having to think about buying groceries.
Yeah.
Because your spouse does it. Or imagine not having to worry about sports because that's their job and they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's such a good book. And I really believe that is a relationship saver.
Yeah.
If people could understand that and get really good on communication and really good on dividing things up, when the kids are gone and you don't have that anchor anymore, you're going to feel really good about each other.
Yeah.
So I really, really love that book so much.
I think it's like the ripple effect, isn't it? It's the ripple effect. Like you start feeling happier and healthier and stronger, and you just can't stop the ripple effect. Like it's evident. I remember during chemo, there was a day that I spent a lot of time in bed, and my husband would always look after me, look after the kids first, cook. And then if the house was like a bomb, site, he didn't care. That wasn't his priority, right? Which I would be trying to do everything, like clean the house, the kids, and I wouldn't sometimes do anything right? Like, because I'm just trying to do two things at the same time. And I remember thinking to myself, the house is messy, but he's doing a much better job with the kids because he's focused on them as a priority.
Isn't that fascinating what you can learn from your partner if you pay attention? Like, I think a lot of times, like, I was this way. I was pretty hard on him for not, I came home and everything was a mess. Like, this is really stressful for me when I walk in the door. But you know what? Maybe I should be taking a cue from him and not be so concerned about keeping everything so clean and hang out with the kids.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us like a success story, like, a client that came to you with a particular challenge and, how they came out on the other side.
Yeah. Well, it's all, so my big thing is accountability. So the accountability, I do accountability coaching. And that is just, we figure out kind of what it is that you really want to do. So I don't necessarily work like a life coach. I don't help a lot with the emotional stuff. I just like kind of hand them homework. If you want to go read this, do this. So if somebody comes in, typically what happens with an accountability person is that they've either done a life plan with me and they have a list of things that they need to just go through. And that's so easy. Like, you have a plan. So we just go through and I'm just making sure you're doing this stuff. And maybe I'm helping you troubleshoot. And it's a never ending process. Like, this life plan, like, you create a life plan and all you do is you just tweak it.
Yeah.
Every year or two, you tweak it and you just keep moving forward. The accountability comes into play when they feel like they can't get it done on their own. And you just need somebody to kind of flick you in the forehead a little bit. I mean, I need that. I hire people to help me do that. It's just, I have ADHD too. So I definitely need a little extra support. But so the other thing that I do is a life plan. So that's my baby. That's the thing that made such a difference in my life, that
Yeah.
if something were to happen to me tomorrow, I will feel really good about what I've done
Yeah.
in my life, even though I've only been doing this part of it for 4 years, working on a life plan for 4 years. Like, that's pretty to have that quick kind of turnaround about how you feel about yourself. And I know that I have heard from my clients that they have this plan and they instantly feel better because they feel like they have an answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that life plan can change. And I say life plan, it's not even a life plan, it's a midlife plan. It's like, what do you want to do in midlife? And I have just revised it because another part of what I do is help people with empty nest, because there's so much that you can be doing before your kids leave the house. There's so much you can do for yourself that will help ease that transition. So I've started incorporating that part into the midlife plan as well, because I feel like it's such an important piece of our midlife.
Hmm.
And I work with moms. I don't work with dads. I don't work with uh, women with no kids.
Yeah.
You can still learn stuff, but I just feel like we are an ignored or undervalued part of society. So I really want to focus, and I feel like we need a lot of help and support. So that's that. I have another midlife plan workshop coming up with this new stuff in it. And that's going to be interesting because that's all new. It's got all this new components in it. We talk about menopause. We talk about, midlife. We talk about communication and relationship stuff a lot. So I don't have an answer for how people are going to receive that yet. I'll get back to you. But in general, it's just knowing, this is what I hear all the time, just knowing that these things can be an issue has eased me so much.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to know before because it was so scary for me, but just knowing this stuff might happen.
Yeah.
Is really, it helps a lot. So there's not a lot of huge changes in people that I've noticed because I haven't been doing this long enough to track somebody over 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do know that
you're being hard on yourself. I bet there is changes that you've seen.
I've been doing this midlife mentoring for 4 years. I had to have, in 2020, I had to have a pandemic pivot.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was a family photographer and I was going to people's homes. And that's where I really learned about moms.
Yeah.
And I really learned about relationships, was doing that for 15 years. So, and I also did the coaching on the side.
Yeah.
So to have that long term, to see the evolution of somebody over a long period of time, I'm excited to get there. Give me 6 more years and then I will have a 10-year way to track somebody. But I will tell you that people who implement little tiny things, even things I tell in my Instagram stories, I get messages all the time and people are like, wow, I am so inspired. I tried this and it's such a simple way. I feel better. And I started a group on Facebook. And it's free. It's called Handle the Hard.
Yeah.
And every day you just go and you're like, I'm going to do this one hard thing.
Yeah.
And that's it. Tackle one hard thing every day. I've had so many people tell me that has changed their lives.
Yeah.
Because they get to tick off something on their to-do list that has been bugging them. They get to challenge themselves. And the more we do hard things, the better we get at doing hard things, but we build this resilience so that when something does happen to us, it doesn't absolutely devastate us.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because I'm kind of, as I'm telling you this, I'm kind of, I don't want to say broad because it's all midlife stuff. And it's all about helping us improve our situations in these tiny little ways. So I think it really depends, like how much somebody progresses really depends on how open they are to taking control and take ownership and follow through with action. So like I mentioned, the people in the accountability group they really love it because they get pushed to do something, but it's also, it's kind of like therapy.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it forever and ever. At some point, you have to teach yourself how to be
Yes.
accountable. And
Yes.
that's what I really want people to learn. All these tools that I teach them, goal setting, aspirations, habits, all of that. I don't want people to be reliant on me. I
Yes.
want them to be able to do it for themselves and just to be like, okay, this is important to me.
Mhm.
And to understand motivation. And that's another one that people really love to learn about is motivation, because it's temporary, right?
Mhm.
It's a moment. And if you don't act on it when it happens, how do you manufacture it? How do you get that back
Yeah.
and try to work through it and around it? So I work a lot with that. And I think that that might be one of the places that people are the most fascinated by.
Mhm.
Handling hard things and knowing they can do it is one, but then also this whole motivation piece.
Yeah.
It's, and I'm sure that you've experienced that, like when in all of your research and stuff, just learning about motivation.
Yeah, I mean,
And
look, I think that what you said is just spot on, like when you're coaching somebody, it's a two-way thing. It's either 50% from the person who's coaching and the 50%, the client learning and implementing. If the person is not implementing,
yeah,
and open to trying new things and open to doing different things, they're only going to get as much result as they actually
yeah,
take action, right? And I also feel that, I've had lots of clients that have told me, like, I've been in therapy for 20 years, and I'm like, okay, so, tell me what you talk to your therapist right now and what you are working on. And a lot of people go like, well, I don't know, like, I don't know, like, I just go there and we talk about, and I'm like, well, you're just wasting your time,
yeah.
because if you're not working on something, like I'm
Yeah,
not going to therapy right now, but when I went with a purpose, right?
yeah,
I just went there and I said, look, this is something where I'm like really stuck and I need you to help me.
yeah. I want to work on these things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, I worked through that, and that opened up some other things. We worked through these other things, and that was it. Like, she was awesome, and she's still awesome, and I know I can go back there if I feel stuck. But
yeah,
the idea is that people take ownership of, okay, well, I'm going to learn this, and I'm going to not wait for the motivation to come, but that's what I'm going to practice every single day.
yeah,
And I think what you
yeah,
talked about the midlife, like the stuff that might come up. I mean, it's going to come up, right? If you have kids, they're going to leave home.
yeah,
If you are in
yeah,
your 40s, you're going to hit menopause. And
yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And
that's a fact, like, so what are you going to do about it? You're just going to wait until you get there and then it's like, oh, is that it? Like, I
yeah.
didn't know. That's
That's what's fascinating about menopause is that I've had more clients research and talk to their doctors about menopause. I
yeah,
cannot count how many people, actual clients or people who are like your newsletter, email, whatever, that have, I can't count how many. They
yeah,
had no idea about the various things that can happen to us when
yeah,
our hormones start to decline and why HRT, hormone replacement therapy, talking to your doctor about that, like
yeah,
it's just wild. That was a surprise to me because all I did was start sharing what I've been learning about it and adding my personal experience in it. And so many people just leaned right in, like, wait, what?
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm
Tell me
feeling that.
more.
Yes, I'm feeling that. Oh, yeah, because
Yeah,
it creeps up on you, right? Like all of the little
yeah.
symptoms, it creeps up on you. So, and people don't realize it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that could be this, but it's
Oh, yeah,
inevitable.
there was I can't remember who it was, but I just shared a video this woman was talking about. She was in an interview and she just said, I just started not feeling like myself.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it. And I had a client tell me that, and this was about 8 years ago. A client told me, she said, I just don't feel like myself
Mm,
and I don't know what's going on. So she started going to a naturopath. And then I started realizing I don't feel like myself either.
yeah.
It was fascinating. And the naturopath is the one that told her about menopause.
Wow.
And it was just like, it's just crazy that this happens to every single woman.
Yeah.
Every single woman is going to go through menopause. How is it that the vast, vast, vast majority of us have zero clue?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy, like to, that even the doctors are not bringing that up at, when you're kind of reaching the age, like I had to take a drug to put me into menopause during chemo. So I experienced some,
really?
I had a bleeding that it didn't stop, and they thought that I was going to go into menopause naturally because of the chemo, but I didn't. I had a bleeding that almost killed me. So they said, okay, well, we can't afford that anymore. So we need to give you a drug to put you into menopause. And
so you have cancer and they're putting you into menopause.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. And so during chemo, I was taking the drug on top of it. And I remember that, they said, you might have some hot flushes, whatever. And because I was changing my diet already, I would have like one hot flush a day or something like that, but not much. But when the chemo stopped, I was taking only the menopause drug to put me on to menopause. And I elected to have a partial hysterectomy because before the cancer, I was anemic and I didn't want to go back to that because my periods are really heavy. Anyway, I really felt so in my system, in my body, there was only that drug. Of course, there was some traces of chemo still for a long time, but like I was only taking that drug, and I really felt like the whole like memory kind of going all over the place. Now you think something and you lost, in the afternoon. I felt the reaction, like the kid doesn't put their shoes on, you're like, put their shoes on. And then I thought, whoa, like this is crazy, like I knew it wasn't me, like I knew like that, it was just like this thing inside me that I couldn't control. And I remember calling the doctor and I said, look, I need to have this hysterectomy pretty quickly because I can't be on this drug for too long. Like, one, is not very good for me, and two, I'm really now feeling the real effects of menopause. And I explained to him, it's just, I don't want to feel like that. So I had a partial hysterectomy 3 months, 2 months. I had to have 2 more doses and that was it. But there is, I truly believe that there is a lot you can do, around food, exercise.
That's fascinating. There's an absolute connection. And I think the only reason why I survived perimenopause was because I was in the gym lifting weights. Lifting weights is remarkably helpful to help manage your system, your help manage your symptoms. But food, I quit drinking alcohol. I had to because it messed with me so much. My body could no longer process the sugars. And it was awful. Probably one of the better side effects of menopause was that I don't drink anymore. Just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But and food, just managing all of that, you can do so much. You don't have to go on HRT. You don't have to go on the hormone replacement if you're able to do that. And then you go on the hormone replacement if it's not enough. I'm on it. I do estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone now, pretty low doses, but it has all these other benefits too to women as they get older. Osteoporosis runs in my family, and the estrogen can really help with that. My light, I just realized my light, I look like a Smurf.
The light is changing up.
It's getting dark here. I just haven't fixed my light at all. So it's getting dark.
So we, it's just almost about an hour. When is your workshop? Do you have a date yet?
It's in April. I haven't picked an actual date. It's going to be, it's a 6-week workshop. And we go through everything live. I'm so excited for it because I'm telling you, I just swear by it. I swear by the program so much. It's so simple. That's the beauty of it. It is so simple. It's just It's getting people to think about how they want to live and to think about how they want to affect people.
Yes.
And then we work backwards and you make a plan.
Perfect.
And then you start working forwards on it. And that's it. It's just, I mean, I make it sound very, very simple, but there's a lot of steps to it.
Yeah.
And, but I broke it down in such a way that it makes it simple and doable and manageable. I've taken life plan courses in the past or had people help me with goals. And I just, goals are hard to understand, like how to really do them effectively. So I figured out a whole system for that.
Amazing.
Work on that. So that's in April of this year.
So you're going to have more details on your website, of course. So I'm going to add your website.
I have a wait list. I have a wait list right now. So if you go to the website, it's
okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. At the top, you can click through and join the wait list. And those people are the first ones that get announced because I'm keeping it really small. Like keeping it small so that we can all connect, because I have to meet with everybody too, one-on-one with these as well. So if I've got 50 people, that's, I won't be able to give what I want to give. So
perfect.
Yeah.
And if you guys are not following Jennifer on TikTok, you should definitely, because she's got an amazing TikTok profile with so much value, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And I'll add all the your handles and comments.
They're all of my socials are it's all 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗧𝗓𝗏.
Yeah, perfect.
They're all the same. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
This was so great. This was so great. And I really do need to go because this light is really not working.
Thank you.
I will talk to you soon.
See you.